You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. There are certain things in our lives that need time and space. I think grief is one of those things, you can't rush it. I think certain kinds of letting go, you can't rush it. And that's the thing about letting go, is that so often we talk about letting go as though it's like letting go equals peace. And that is not always the case. Sometimes letting go is an action that takes an undescribed amount of time before you start to feel peace. But I do think it's the invitation for peace. Hi there, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. I'm Felicia, sitting here last week of July. I can't believe it's already the end of July. This year has flown by, and this summer has flown by. I think it really started to hit me this weekend when I looked at Dave and I'm like, wow, my birthday was already a month ago. The time that Dave was out of town, I think extra sped up this month. And then just the shit show of stuff that's been going on in life, I think has also a tendency to make life feel like it's happening very quickly. Last night was like the first night that I was crawling into bed and I was like craving like the crispness of fall and a little bit of like the darker days. And I almost hate to even let that come out of my mouth because I'm a summer baby. Like I love the sun, setting around 9 o'clock and just having all of this space and of daylight. And it usually gives me so much energy. But I feel like I'm a little bit maxed out right now. I think on multiple levels, which I'll kind of dive into later in this episode. But it has me kind of craving a little bit more slowness, a little bit more retreat. And yeah, I'm feeling that big time right now. And one of the things that Dave and I have been talking about a lot lately is his realization of how extroverted he is. And I've told him this for a long time, the reason that I've said this for him is that whenever we're around people or when he actually starts to kind of open up and get into a talkative mood, I can never pull him out of that conversation. Like he gets so much energy from good conversation, connecting with people, being out, being dancing at the end of the night at a wedding. Like he just gets so much energy and joy from that. While I love long, deep conversations, I think my ability to sit in the closet and share a podcast, it's obviously, I definitely enjoy connection. And I'm definitely one of those people that can, when you go out for coffee with somebody, end up 3-4 hours later, just still having a great conversation. And that gives me a lot of energy. But managing multiple people dynamics starts to feel really taxing for me. And even though this weekend was my first, my wedding this week was on a Friday, so this was my first weekend to have both Saturday and Sunday off in a really long time. And I was so excited to relish it. And instead of being able to really enjoy it, I found myself in a really dark place. And it kind of, obviously consumed me. And I feel like I learned a lot this weekend, but I definitely don't feel like I got a chance to rest or rejuvenate. Instead, I feel like I have been mentally working, emotionally working, somewhat physically working. It's just, I think when you're so connected, we are all so connected to our bodies that you can't really feel the effects of one or two of those without feeling the effects in the body too. And vice versa. When your body's going through something, you feel it emotionally and mentally and all of that. So that's where I am right now. I am doing better than I was this weekend. But I am feeling a little bit tired. So if you hear that in my voice, I will admit that is where I'm at right now. What's funny is that heading into this full moon weekend, the full moon was on Friday into Saturday, and it was one of those things where I'd heard a lot of astrologers last week talking about like, take it easy this full moon, like don't, if you feel like you want to like start some fireworks, like don't do it. It's not going to be worth it. Like this is a time for you to retreat into yourself, to let go, to really be clear about what it is that you want to let go of. And even in the full moon guide that I wrote last week and shared with my Patreon community, I was sharing about how important it is that we find emotional balance within ourselves. Resentment is such a real thing. Like resentment arises when things don't feel fair. And I think we all go through this from time to time. Like we all have little things in our life, like we're constantly trying to find balance and maybe equality, like an equilibrium. And when things start to feel unfair, at first it's just like, okay, I'll compromise. And then little things add up and add up and add up. And it does start to make for resentment, even with the people you love. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to a bride who was having a very stressed out wedding moment. Totally fair that she was validated in this. But, she just mentioned, she's like, and I don't even have my fiance to help me with this because it's not that he wouldn't want to or be so willing to help. It's just I've got myself in so deep where I'm the only one who knows how this should go, how this should look, what needs to be done, and how it needs to be done, that it's just totally unfair. Like he can't jump in and help now. And as much as she, kind of owns up to the fact that she did that to herself, she's like, I feel super resentful right now. Like I can't help but feel resentful towards him. And I just got that so much because I think for a lot of us, especially those who have some controlling tendencies, we put ourselves in that position. And when there's that kind of resentment building, it's not even just the other person that we're mad at. Sometimes the person we're mad at is ourself. We're angry for allowing ourselves to have gotten in that position in the first place. We're angry that we didn't catch the way we needed to delegate the power, that kind of thing. And so right now, like during this full moon, I think it's such a wonderful idea to really kind of face that part of yourself. Like, what are those resentments? How is it affecting you? How can we let go? And so I created a really cool ritual that I honestly have not had the chance to do yet, just because, well, honestly, this weekend would have been a really good time for me to do it, but I just did not have the ability to step into it and actually go for it. And that is such a honest but also real example of like sometimes you can know the right thing to do and not make time or space for it. And I can honestly say I wish I would have carved out some alone time for myself to really release some of the stuff that has been going on for me, because the ritual in this full moon guide kind of goes, it's specifically for like emotional balance and support. And it just kind of walks you through different categories of your life that you can figure out where imbalances are, and then ways to release some of that like pent up anger and resentment, so that you can find yourself beneath it. And then from that place, you can take action without the underlying anger or resentment. Because like that's the truth, is like when we can come at things more solution oriented, we can actually make big change. So I will say, I think we are all still in the middle of this full moon energy. I think it was a big one for us, a big one for release, also for awakening, for realizing all of the, I guess, things that are out of balance in our life. And for me, I definitely had those big moments, and I wish that I would have done a little bit more for myself, kind of, like I said, do that ritual. But that's the thing about all of this work is it's never too late. It's not like you can say, oh, well, now that the full moon has passed, I guess I lost my chance for the month. No, you can always still do this work. Like, yes, there is a lot of lunar power when the moon is full, but it's never too late. That's how I believe. That's how I move through things. And the other thing that I always want to be an advocate for is just elemental self-care throughout the season. So right now we're in Leo season. Finally, this happened end of last week. We moved from Sun into Cancer, to Sun into Leo. This is a fire sign. It is a sign of strength, of courage, of independence, of power, of passion, of warmth. Like you can really picture the lion, right? Or the sun, the warmth of the sun. And I think really good ways to take care of yourself when we're in that fire sign is to honor the sun. Maybe this is a time to, if you're a yogi, to pick up your sun salutation part of your practice, or just incorporate that a little bit more into your flow. Leos and fire signs need to move, need movement. So that's another great way that you can connect to the fire sign during the month of Leo is just, get out and have fun, dance. If you love to dance, put on a YouTube video or go out dancing. Or maybe if you go to that wedding, maybe you don't restrict yourself from getting on that dance floor. You just let yourself be free a little bit. Freedom is a huge piece of fire and air, I think, especially. And other things that you can do right now that are perfect kind of end of summer activities are get out and go camping. Campfires, huge, another way to honor fire sign, right? Just being up for an adventure, going on a hike, doing something you haven't done before. These are such important things for the human experience, I think, as well. Our brains love novelty. So if you can find a way to kind of honor that, definitely go for it. Now, that being said, with anything, you have to find balance inside of yourself. So, even as I encourage that, I know for me that before I can find a way to honor some fire, I've got to find a way to ground myself first, because I am so, I'm probably a little over in air right now. I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been doing a lot of walking. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've been very in my head. I've been very creative lately. And I definitely don't feel my feet on the ground. So before I can go and do more stuff and get my body going and go have fun, I know that if I jumped straight to that I would be so filled with fire and air that I would probably just combust. I am definitely, and in my chart too, I am a very earthy and watery person. So I have to find ways right now to ground down and come back to an equilibrium. Once I can do that, then I can start to honor that fire. Then I can start to honor that sun. And I think having self-awareness around who you are is such a big, important part of you. And if you ever want to do an elements consultation, I think I might add this as a feature to my website, because right now I do have a natal chart reading, which is kind of well, I shouldn't say a little bit. It's a lot more in depth around the elements, where the placements are at. And it's not an astrological reading from an astrologer who's way more advanced than me. It's really just me being able to share my kind of basic information around these are what your placements are in your natal chart, and how you can kind of give you a little bit of information, and even just allow you from that information to learn a lot more about yourself. But if that feels too much, or a little bit too woo-woo or whatever, or just not interesting, we could always do an elemental part of your chart reading. So just talk about the elements that you have going on and how it could play out in your life, and different ideas around you taking care of yourself through looking at the different elements. It's kind of a really fun way to do it. So if you're ever interested in that, please shoot me a message, check out my website. Because I really feel as soon as I started looking at self-care through the elements, it really did transform my life and my spiritual practices, but also just how I felt moving throughout the day. It helped me figure out when I was off and how to get back to balance faster. So I guess that's the end of our astrochart segment. Yeah, I told you guys I was tired. I'm tripping over my words a little bit today. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and chat more about ridiculously high expectations and how to manage those. Okay, so like I mentioned, this weekend was a bit of a doozy for me. And I spent a large part of the weekend really reflecting back on how did I get here? Why am I feeling this way? And the truth is, like, when you get to a place like this, there's usually a lot of factors that go into it, right? Like if you have a bad day, it's usually not just because, just one thing went wrong and that was it. It just was horrible. It's like most of the time it's, well, this thing was going on before that happened. And then I was in this headspace. And so I forgot this. And then this happened and I wasn't, able to fully function through that situation, which led to this going wrong. And, it's like a chain reaction, right? Or like a domino effect. Maybe not always, but I think that is a very common thing to happen. And for me, it's like I mentioned last week, just navigating through some big personal stuff. It feels like there's a lot of stuff up for me right now. And after this weekend, I had a work situation where I felt like so much pressure to be the best. So much pressure to be the best. Like the expectations that I had for myself going into this work event were so high. And it felt like there was a lot that I was up against once getting there. Because as a photographer, you are working with a lot of unpredictable elements. Like, yes, you have control over yourself. Yes, you can do your best to direct others, but like you can try to move things along. And if they do, then wonderful. But sometimes things don't move. The past couple weddings that I've had where there's been rain have been so difficult. Because you're constantly trying to quickly rearrange things around weather, which you cannot control. Sometimes, and that's the thing, the other thing about weather is like, sometimes you can read the weather very well and sometimes you can't. Like a couple of, or I guess not a couple of months ago, but a month ago, I had this wedding where it was forecasted rain, 100% chance all day. But when we finished getting the bride and groom ready and it was time for their first look, the sun was shining. And so we knew we had a good opportunity to do it. I've also shot weddings where the clouds were so gray and stormy that like every few minutes it was sprinkling, then raining hard, then no rain, then raining hard again. And you're trying to navigate it moving in and out, but you can only do your best to read that. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a wedding that I shot where it was raining so hard. We had to move their ceremony indoors, rained through the whole thing, did all the family photos inside. And I was like, okay, it seems like it's letting up a little bit. Let's take the wedding party outside. We'll do a couple of pictures of them. We'll do a couple of pictures of the bride and groom, and then we'll get them all back inside. So we all went out under our umbrellas. The ground was like an inch of rain. Like it was super, like the earth was soaked. And we got out there. We had to run back to get these lights on. I was taking a couple pictures, and as soon as we got out there, I was literally within my like first 1 or 2 snaps of the wedding party, it starts raining harder and harder, and I could feel, I was like, this is not going to let back up. And so the lights came on. I sent the wedding party back inside. I had the couple walk towards me, like down the path, and as they're walking towards me, you can like it starts to hail, and we all just like pick up the bride's dress and we are running back to the venue. Like it was not like a quick like outside the doors. It was like at the other end of this long parking lot. So we are running back through, like we were all soaked, luckily the bride and groom were amazing and just rolled with it all. But the whole point of sharing this is that I know that I cannot control the weather, but sometimes I feel this probably rather irrational pressure to feel as though I should always know what to do. And I am an overthinker in the moment because I also know I have to make quick decisions, and I also feel like I always have to make the right decision. So sometimes though, I feel like it is, sometimes I make the wrong decision, or looking back, I would have slightly changed the decisions. And that is one part that I really struggle with being a wedding photographer is sometimes when I go home from a wedding, I'm filled with this sense of, it's a mixture of sadness, of guilt, of shame, of wishing it could have gone differently, of feeling like I tried my best also. At this recent work event that kind of put me into this spiral, it was like there was a lot of tiny bits of drama with the vendors. Apparently Dave, who was at this event with me, was overhearing the DJ talk shit about me to some of the other vendors who were there, basically being like, there she is out there taking photos. And this like crushed me because I work my ass off to be so fast. Like there are photographers out there. I've heard countless stories about photographers who take the couple for 2 or 3 hours to do pictures of them or the wedding party. People who have made their guests wait for literally hours before they get to spend time with their guests. I have literally never done that in my entire experience. Every time I pull couples, it's for very quick amounts of time, always making sure the bride and groom are feeling good about it, always knowing what's happening with the other vendors, what's happening with the general timeline, never, ever trying for things to be really late. And I've also spent plenty of times in my life looking back and regretting those moments that I didn't advocate more for myself in those moments, because if I would have had another 5 minutes with a client, I could have done more to give them what I wanted to give them or what they paid for from me. I do feel like we've always come through. We've never delivered a bad product. We've never sacrificed something that a client has wanted for the sake of other vendors. But there have been times that like I've compromised very quickly, and I've regretted that a little bit too. So it's always a balance, right? Like this, maybe what I'm realizing right now as I talk is that I don't give myself enough credit for how demanding and how challenging it is. And I think maybe part of that comes down to the fact that like there's so many people who do what I do. Like everybody knows. I would be surprised if everybody didn't know at least like 4 or 5 people who did some kind of photography. It is such a giant, like a well-known job that so many people do. And so I think sometimes, not that I think everybody can do it well, but I do think that it's a job that a lot of people assume is just rather simple to do, when these are the things that are immeasurably difficult about the job. And, you know, I did end up having words with the DJ who was frustrated by me taking some of the photos, but I just had to share with him. I'm like, listen, I know it took a couple minutes longer. I was literally like five minutes behind, but this couple needed these photos. We had asked about it. It was time to get them. Like it's going to be dark by the time the toasts and stuff finished. So it was time. Like we had to do it then. And it took a little bit longer to gather people, but it was during a mingling time. And he full on like admitted to me, he's like, he's like, it was actually my bad. He's like, I should have checked with you before I sat people for toast, and I should have done that. And I'm mad at myself. And I'm like, okay, like fair enough. I know, and this is the thing, is like when you're working a wedding, every single vendor who is there is trying to do their best job by the couple. And the only thing that like really frustrates me is when there's blame that's thrown around onto other people, instead of just rolling with what needs to happen. Because on a wedding day, you just need to roll with it. So anyway, this weekend, that's a little bit of light on some of the dynamics that I was kind of juggling during this last work thing. And I think that maybe it was the energy of the full moon. Maybe it's just because I came off of this like really big one that like I just wanted to go so well because I feel so connected to this couple and I love them so much. But I just felt like all of this guilt that I didn't show up as my best self. And I was irrationally worried that for some reason that it wasn't enough. So I found myself like staying up late looking through the images and then waking up early feeling like I needed to get everything out right away. And just carrying this literal ball in my stomach of stress that I kept trying and trying to let go of, and I could not. I had mentioned a little bit of my stress to Dave on Saturday, and he did a good job of listening. And then I kept telling myself, like, Felicia, you know that the right way to deal with this is to give this time and space. I was like, I need to get off my phone. I need to get off the computer. I need to stop working. I need to get into a different flow. And then what do I actually do Saturday night? I spend 4 hours working on a wedding. Not that project, but a different one that was getting ready to be due. And that was also, I was mad at myself because I thought I was much closer to finishing it when I sat down to finish it that night, and it took a lot longer. And that's okay. I do kind of retreat into my little work shell. I get at my desk and I'm just like a little crab in her shell working away. And maybe I needed that a little bit too, just to let my mind go. But when I woke up on Sunday, I like really made a commitment to myself as like, it's times like these that all of the small practices of mindfulness, of letting go, they add up for those moments. For the moments when it feels impossible to let go, when it feels so big to you for whatever reason, whether it's appropriate or irrational. Those are the moments that you're working towards. And so I tried to pull out all my tools that I could in the moment, like really, I sat there and made a gratitude list. I tried to get my mind off of it. When I woke up Sunday morning, I didn't touch my phone. I didn't check my emails. I made breakfast for myself, and I really sat for a minute and thought, like, what would be something fun to do today? Something that'd be fun for me that would help me get out of my head. And so Dave and I decided to go check out this really cool food court that's over in Golden. We love Golden. It's like our favorite. It's like everybody's favorite, right? Everybody loves Golden, Colorado. It's amazing. But there's this place that is called the Golden Mill, and it's essentially like a really cool food court that you can go and hang out at, has open seating. And so we decided to go try it out and go on like this little date day. And I really wanted to feel connected to Dave. Like, we've just been having a lot of heavy talks lately, and I just really needed that with him. So, I didn't want to bring it up, like how I was feeling about the situation, but we ended up having a really, really great talk about it. And I was so grateful for this space just to work through it. And, you know, he had mentioned to me like, hey, like you've got to let this go. And I told him, I was like, that is my plan. My plan wasn't to talk about this today. Like, I know that this is something that, like I said, I appreciate us being able to kind of process through it, because I did need that to process through it with somebody else. But I did feel at that point like this ability just to stop talking about it. You hit this point, whether you consciously know it or not, where continuing to obsess about the thing that you can't let go of is only detrimental for you. There is nothing good that can come out of it. It's kind of like when you have been, you know, doing the dance with your partner where you're like in in the fight, and then it's like after 10 p.m. and you bring it up, it's like nothing good is going to come from that at that point. It's very much like that. There are certain things in our lives that need time and space. I think grief is one of those things, you can't rush it. I think certain kinds of letting go, you can't rush it. And that's the thing about letting go, is that so often we talk about letting go as though it's like letting go equals peace. And that is not always the case. Sometimes letting go is an action that takes an undescribed amount of time before you start to feel peace. But I do think it's the invitation for peace. And the part that I had to really sit with this weekend is the idea that like, I am not feeling comfortable with where I'm at. It is, for whatever reason, forcing me to really wake up to a lot of the stuff that's happening inside of me. Whether that is resentments, whether that is some grief lingering around, whether that is some realizations that I've made some mistakes and needing to own up to some things, or really having this awakening around, I need to make, there's some changes that I want to make in my life and how I come across and how I'm managing things in my leadership. And ultimately, I knew that these were important revelations to have. So even though it felt so shitty and so uncomfortable, I also knew that it was worthwhile, and that after I was out of the discomfort, once it could move through it, that I would look back and be like, wow, I learned a lot and I'm better for it. So I think that's very important. But, going through it, the letting go part is really hard. And I think you have to commit to distracting yourself, and not in a place of avoidance, but in a place of choosing to compartmentalize, be like, yes, this is going on for me right now. This is where I'm at with this. And I will revisit this at a different point when I either have more information or when I have more mental space to do something about it. And oftentimes you do need more information. So anyway, after we had that processing talk about it, we ended up just enjoying some food and some drinks and being outside in the sun. And then we came home and I really wanted to go to the pool. The pool at our house is like my favorite place to be this summer because I love the water. I love being out in the sunshine. And yesterday was such a hot day, but I also sometimes don't love being at the pool on the weekends because sometimes there's so many people there and you can't control who you're around. Sometimes there's lots of splashers or weird parties that can be happening, and like it can be not fun. So I sent Dave to the pool to scout it out. I was like, I don't want to go if it's going to be even more frustrating, right? If it's going to potentially leave me in a worse place. So he was like, it's like 50-50, but let's just go. He's like, it's not too bad, but it's not great. Let's just go to the pool. So we did, and it ended up being one of the best things and distractions ever because I was able to leave my phone in my purse, get in the water. And this is going to sound crazy, but like in the water, I found myself just feeling like I could start to move through some of my anger. I just kind of was moving the water around feeling like I need this. Like I need to just be kind of angry. And I realized in that moment that I'm just feeling like a little neglected by the universe. Like here I am working my ass off, doing the same thing, trying so hard, having these ridiculously high expectations of myself and wanting to see benefit in my life. And instead I feel like I'm seeing everybody else have yeses in their life. I'm seeing everybody else have these big celebrations or having all this fun or having opportunities or going on vacations or having big breakthroughs in their life. And I feel like stuck. I feel forgotten by the universe. I feel like everything in my life, no matter how hard I try, is just staying the same, and that I'm being neglected, that I'm not getting a vacation, I'm not getting time off, I'm not getting breakthroughs with our finances. I'm not able to pay off some of our debt. Like, I'm not able to move things the way that I want to. I'm not able to, even just like, I feel like with my schedule, it's like one thing after another being piled on. And it is maybe just, this is the point in the year that I hit where I'm just like, I'm done. I need a timeout. I need a timeout so, so bad because I've got too much on my shoulders. And it's funny that those are the words that come out of my mouth because literally since Saturday morning, like I woke up with this huge knot in the right side of my shoulder. I asked Dave to look at it and he's like, I can literally see it through your body, like your scapula is moved up. And it's like my rotation of my neck it's not horrible. Like it definitely could be worse. Like I don't feel like I've thrown it out, but it's not great. And I don't mean to sit here and complain because as sorry as I'm like acting like I'm feeling for myself, I also know how lucky I am to have a business right now that's booming, that's growing, to have so many people who want to work with me, to have a home, to have a comfortable bed, to have the ability to go out for drinks at the Golden Mill. Like I know that I am blessed. I know that I am lucky. And I don't mean to, sit here and be like, oh, woe is me. But I also wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that that's how I was feeling, just like at least how I was feeling yesterday. So I was there in the pool, moving the water around, starting to feel like I could acknowledge some of this stuff. And actually, it was funny because physically moving through the water was helping me begin to let go. And we reached a point where Dave was like, okay, I'm getting out of the water. And I was like, I'm not ready. I think I'm going to go sit in the hot tub, which was kind of nice actually, because as we were at the pool this really hot day, the wind started blowing. It's starting to cool things down quite a bit. And so by the time I went into the hot tub, it felt amazing. And I was sitting in there by myself, just kind of closing my eyes, feeling the sunshine down on me, feeling the breeze on my face, just starting to feel a little bit more relaxed. And this girl came over who I'd seen at the pool a couple times before. She seems pretty cool. And we just started talking. And I'm usually not a talker, like a stranger talker. I have to be in the right mindset. And I definitely, for some reason, was. And we started having like a really great talk about like what it's like to be a millennial and how like we are the generation that learned at a very pivotal age, like around 11, 12, 13, how to start taking a lot of meaning and like subtext from words instead of like body language or even like voice. Because I think before us is like most of your communication, came over like the phone or in person, but we were like the AOL instant messenger version. So we learn, or like email, we learn very quickly like what K means instead of like, okay, that sounds good. Like usually we just learned a lot about like subtext with words. We were talking about that, started talking about weddings, started talking about life, boyfriends, husbands, all of that kind of stuff. And I could feel like as I was talking to her, just like some of that like continue to let go happening inside of me, just like, okay, here I am. I'm everything's still okay. I'm okay. Life is moving on. Nothing is wrong. Like everything is fine. And it wasn't part of the conversation, right? It wasn't like I was venting to her and getting that validation. It was just moving on to the next thing, showing up in the next moment. And we ended up, like Dave and I became friends with this couple, and it was really fun just to get to know them a little bit better, meet their dogs, and like, I don't know, it felt like a little ray of sunshine in a dark storm. And so that kind of turned around the night. I came home, made us dinner. We watched a movie together, which we have not had time to do literally in like at least 7 or 8 weeks because I've been working so much. So that felt really good. And then I fell asleep for, I'm not kidding, like 10 hours. And I woke up today and I still feel tired. And I can't help but feel like that's just some mental fatigue. And I'm trying to exercise that self-compassion right now. I did have to grab this book. You guys know my favorite book, or one of them, The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty. And I actually found this one. It's for, so in The Language of Letting Go, it's like it has a date for every little passage. And so this one's actually for tomorrow, but it felt so appropriate for today, and it's literally on letting go. And I'm going to read this because it's kind of short and it really resonated with me. It says, "Stop trying so hard to control things. It is not our job to control people, control outcomes, control circumstances, or control life. Maybe in the past we couldn't trust and let things happen, but we can now. The way life is unfolding is good. Let it unfold. Stop trying so hard to do better, or be more. Who we are and the way we do things is good enough for today. Who we were and the way we did things yesterday was good enough for that day. Ease up on ourselves. Let go. Stop trying so hard." And damn, did that hit. And if anything, it's like, maybe what I'm feeling today is kind of this testament that when you're going through big stuff and you're working on the big stuff in life, or sometimes it could be the small things, it's okay to be tired. It's okay to hit a breaking point. It's okay to need a break. It's okay. Let's try to go back to the things that we can control. I know that for me, this is a huge wake-up call that I need to reevaluate my expectations that I have for myself, and not just some of the time. Because what I realized this weekend is that I'm okay being human as long as other people are okay with me being a human, right? Like if no one is upset by my flaws or my weaknesses, then it's okay that I have them. But the second somebody judges me for my weaknesses or my flaws, the second I'm called out for them, the second that I have made somebody else mad or upset or ruined something for them, then, and this is an irrational belief, then it is not okay. Then I am a bad person. Then I messed up. Then I need to beat myself up. And that right there is something that needs to get solved, because that's a big problem. And it's not a way to move through life with compassion for myself if I'm believing that I have to be holding myself to this this standard that's not even decided by me, that's decided by other people. And I'm going to make mistakes sometimes. I'm going to do the best that I can, but sometimes I'm going to wish it would have turned out differently. And I've got to really get to a place where I can be okay with that, where I can laugh it off a little bit, where I can grow from it, do things differently in the future, but where I don't have to sit here and spend an entire weekend spiraling because I couldn't control the weather. It's like that's silly. So that's it for today. You guys have gone on and on. I hope that sharing all of this, as always, from my heart, I just hope that it, in some way, a bit of this can connect to parts of you. So let's do a card reading and end today's episode. Today we'll be using Tasha Silver's deck, Wild Offerings. I love this deck for the fact that each card is almost like a little prayer. I find it really helpful. Aha. This card says, calmness. The inner divine is the witness of all, remaining still and quiet, even during intense turbulence. So take a deep breath and then say, quiet my mind, dear Lord. May your peaceful calm take over. Do you feel that too? I'm kind of like, that is kind of exactly what I was trying to describe with the idea that like the letting go isn't the action that creates the peace. It's actually the journey of the calmness that comes after the letting go. Love that so much. Well, that about says it all, doesn't it? Thank you again for joining me today. If you would like to check out that ritual that I created for emotional support and balance, you can get it for free in my monthly full moon guide from my website, abitfromwithin.com. And if you love this kind of stuff and you'd like to listen to this episode ad-free, you can check out our Patreon page. You can join for $6 a month. It supports the A Bit From Within business. It allows me to create more of this work. You'll also get access at that level to all of a huge library of guided meditations. And then we have other levels too that offer more yoga and more connection and community and things like that. So you can always check us out on patreon.com/abitfromwithin. Thank you all so much. I'm sending you lots of love, and until next time.